Welcome into Heartlander News. Be sure to bookmark and regularly check in for the very latest headlines written by journalists you can actually trust. Real legitimate media coming out of the heartland. It's at heartlandernews.com. If you haven't been there, hope you'll go check it out. Read each and every day and all week long. Great work going on there. For just some of it here today, my name's Chris Stigall, and welcome into the show. You know, I see today a story at the Washington Free Beacon that says the crushing cost of living is driving youth to socialism. And this is according to the New York Times. The executive editor of the Times, a guy called Joe Kahn, just did an interview in which he boasts about his 2,200-person newsroom, talks about the need for skeptical editors, and including those on the political right who ask, what are we missing here? The Times newsroom investigative effort to discover what's attracting young people to socialism sure could have benefited from that kind of scrutiny, but unfortunately it is absent, they write. Under the print headline, Groundswell for Democrat Socialists Rooted in Crushing Cost of Living, and the online headline, How Economy Anxiety is Driving the Democrat Socialist Surge, there were interviews, many leaders, strategists, and whatnot, arguing that the driving force in the primary results and the group's expanding influence, in a sense, especially among young people, the economy, and that it is not working for many people. The article also speaks about layoffs in white-collar industries, that the threat of job displacement from AI, rising cost of living. The folks at the Free Beacon say that this article and the headline itself is flawed because there is no groundswell for Democrat socialists. There were a few low turnout Democrat primaries in heavily left-wing New York City districts where socialists did well. Look, that may be, and I know for a fact that you have to look closely at these elections and respect them. As I said earlier in the week, it is critically important to respect and understand that this is a very real movement, Democrat socialists. And while the Free Beacon criticizes the New York Times for over-exaggerating the, quote, groundswell, the fact of the matter is there is a movement in mainstream media, there is a movement amongst the American Democrat Party to convince young people that their lives aren't going to improve at all unless a very select few are empowered to make everything fair and equitable for everybody else. I mean, for years, politicians in Washington have talked about making life more affordable for American families. The fact of the matter is, this president is actually doing something about it, and that is what the Democrats are most terrified about. I mean, just consider two big developments that haven't gotten nearly enough attention, in my view, in the last days. We've talked a little about it here. First, let's talk about prescription drugs. For decades, Americans paid the highest prices in the world for many of the exact same medicines that are sold overseas. It's the same pill, the same manufacturer, and yet American families often paid 2, 5, or even 10 times more. Well, the Trump administration asked a simple question. Why should Americans subsidize lower prices for everyone else? And so he came up with the most favored nation policy system, and it challenged that broken system. The administration has now reached an agreement with 17 pharmaceutical companies to bring prices in line in this country with the lowest rates paid anywhere else in the developing world. And the savings really have been stunning. Medications that once cost over $1,000 a month are now available for much less, maybe a few hundred a month. Families dealing with everything from diabetes, obesity, Hep C, HIV, asthma, infertility, they're finally catching a break. And that's money staying in American pockets instead of leaving the country. But there's another story, not just on pharmaceuticals. There's another story that could matter even more in the long run, and we've talked about it here, Trump accounts. And you could read more about the success of Trump accounts at heartlandernews.com. You know, at first glance, it sounds like just another government program, but it's not. It's designed to create owners, investors, makers, not takers. A daily fancy coffee habit or a pack-a-day smoking habit, that can easily cost thousands of dollars a year. And I'm not judging you on that because I certainly enjoy a good cigar and I love my coffee. Spend your money how you want, of course. But imagine putting even a part of that toward your child's future instead. At a reasonable long-term return, investing just $2,000 a year from birth could grow to around $100,000 by adulthood. Max it out, and that young person could start life with well over $200,000 already invested. That changes everything, these Trump accounts. If you haven't looked into them yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. Again, particularly if you have kids under the age of 18, and the younger they are, the better the news is. Instead of beginning adulthood buried in student loans and debt, imagine young people starting with actual assets. Instead of asking what government owes them, they start thinking about what they can build. The siren song of this socialist crap that the New York Times is singing becomes less attractive. For generations, we have taught young Americans how to borrow money. Well, Trump accounts begin teaching them how to actually own something. And ownership, if you own anything, you know, ownership changes you. People who own part of the economy have a real stake in its success. One policy lowers the cost of living today. The other helps build wealth for the next generation. And that's not simple politics. That's a vision for a stronger America. And I got a prediction for you. When I realize the New York Times and others may get excited about the prospect of rising Democrat socialists promising the moon to young people and turning the tide away from Republican voters and into Democrat voters, I've actually got a prediction. I think what Besson at Treasury, what President Trump have done with Trump accounts in particular, I think 20 years from now, folks might actually look back at this period of time and say Trump accounts were one of the smartest government programs ever created. Not because Washington made anybody rich, but because it helped turn a country of borrowers into a nation of actual owners. For centuries, political thinkers have explained that private property is the foundation of a free society. De Tocqueville saw 200 years ago, farmers with their own piece of land thought differently about farming. They planned longer term. If you remember Rush talking about the first pilgrims, when the collectivist attempt to raise agricultural products for the community to share, it was clear that there were some that were either just not talented enough or willing to work as hard as others were. And so they broke up the system and gave everyone their own individual pieces of land to farm. And you had some succeed wildly and some not so much. This is a tale as old as time. Farmers with their own piece of land think differently, just like everybody else. They plan long term. They invest instead of blowing money. They build things up instead of just demanding more, and cared about protecting what they had. And that's the magic of the Trump account. You know, a young person gets something no generation had before them, a small ownership stake in the American economy before they even know how to read. For 18 straight years, watching money grow quietly, steadily, whether anyone adds another dime or not. Before they can even vote or sign a lease or start a business, they learn one of the biggest lessons in life. Real wealth comes from patience, ownership, and time, not from politics or handouts. Just picture an 18-year-old opening that statement and seeing their money, not from luck or a lucky break, just from the time, just from time doing its thing. Millions of them stepping into adulthood, already owning a slice of the economy in the same year they cast their first vote. This isn't just some savings plan. It's really a citizenship program if you think about it. We have spent generations teaching young people how to borrow, taking out loans before they even had a diploma, credit cards before a real paycheck. Trump accounts turn that on its head. They start teaching how to own years before owing anybody anything. A free country runs best when regular citizens have something real to protect and a genuine stake in the future. If this shifts how a whole generation thinks about work, building, and what belongs to them, history might just call Trump accounts one of the most important ideas a government ever implemented. Check back with me. We'll see if I'm right. Meanwhile, the president is also doing something incredibly important along with the vice president on the front of fraud, probably the most important thing that we can do. cracking down on people stealing your tax dollars. Let's go to 375 to start it today. This is Vice President Vance continuing to drive home the point that tax money deserves protection. And this administration's laser focus on it has not relented in the least.
So what I take very seriously as your vice president, what Derek Van Orden and Brian Stigall take very seriously as your congressional representatives, and what Donald Trump takes seriously as the president of the United States is this sacred promise that it exists between the government of the United States and its citizens. That when you pay your tax dollars, it goes to the people who need it, not to the fraudsters, which is why we're throwing those fraudsters in prison. It's exactly where they belong.
And over at the Secretary of Education's office, Linda McMahon in clip 80 here, Aaron. Linda McMahon similarly is looking at the fraud, and there is a lot of it. Stunning amounts of it, as a matter of fact, which is why the federal government, in my view, really shouldn't be in the education business at all. But Linda McMahon similarly said, we're looking at student loans hard, and there's been a lot of theft there, too. We're cracking down on that. Take a listen.
We're just beginning now to really look into the fraud that you're referencing, the K through 12 schools. We've been focusing quite a bit of our fraud detection, if you will, in higher education, at the moment. And we have, through our student loan program, the FAFSA program, we have actually identified and prevented now over $2 billion in fraud. So I'm very pleased that we've been able to do that. And now we're looking more at the K through 12 issues that you were raising. And I can assure you that we will be following through with our departments to see where this money has been going. If fraudsters are just seemingly trying to pick the pocket of American taxpayers everywhere we turn. So as we're looking at schools, or looking at the programs that are going out, we will be focusing on this fraud as well. Well, we're just...
hugely significant and important, and glad to see the Trump administration continuing to stay focused on that while putting money in the pockets of average Americans every day. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, a daycare owner who prosecutors said tried to flee the United States 2 days after shutting her center down pleaded guilty to fraud charges this week. One count of wire fraud, one count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. The Learning Center, remember that? Leering Center, pocketed millions meant to feed children during the pandemic. Charges said they received more than $850,000 in fraudulent funds alone, using most of that money to buy real estate. Separate claims of about $4.6 million filed and taken from the Federal Child Care Assistance Program. She notified the state in February that the Future Leaders was closing. That same day, she booked a flight to London. The sentencing date has not yet been secured. So that's good news. You'll be seeing her locked away for a good long while. And then on the H-1B visa front, fraud, they're cracking down on that too. The Labor Department Inspector General telling Fox Business that the Trump administration has launched its first major investigation into the displacement of American workers through abuses of H-1B. The move comes as the administration continues its anti-fraud initiative spearheaded by J.D. Vance. Dozens of subpoenas have been issued. The Labor Department investigating potential human trafficking cases as a result of visa fraud. Says the Inspector General, this is another example where fraud is fueling violent crime. Much of the visa and human trafficking that we see when it comes to this foreign labor is tied to cartels. It's tied to transnational gangs. And this is the work that we should be doing, not only to make America safe again, but to make America affordable again. So all good. I mean, this is very, very positive stuff. They continue to remember that you and I want accountability as much as we want savings and we want the cost of everything to come down. We also want people who are ripping us off and breaking our laws and getting away with it. It seems we want accountability. And the Trump administration is delivering it.